Hello, I'm Gerald Oppenheim. I'm Chief Executive of the Fundraising Regulator, and welcome to this session about online fundraising fraud. First of all, a bit about the Fundraising Regulator. We're the independent regulator of charitable fundraising in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. We work with other regulators and bodies across the charitable sector to ensure best practice in fundraising and to make sure that members of the public are protected from fraudulent fundraising as far as possible. We set the standards in the Code of Fundraising Practice, which apply to fundraising carried out by all charitable institutions and third-party fundraisers in the UK, including Scotland. The code makes it clear that charities are responsible for making sure that the funds they raise are used for the purpose they were raised for. Good fraud prevention and donor education on what to look out for when giving to charity are essential in order to maintain trust in fundraising. It's almost impossible to eliminate all fundraising fraud that a charity could encounter, as fraudsters try to exploit situations where the exchange of money is involved. That makes due diligence essential to protect donors and beneficiaries as well as the charity itself. There are several risks to be aware of, both online and offline, and these include, for example, fraudsters seeking to exploit the goodwill of the public by setting up fraudulent online crowdfunding pages or a website in the name of the charity. Fraudsters using the name of charities to fundraise in person, and that could be on the street or door to door. Fraudsters may also attempt to use the charity's cause to launder money, dispose of the proceeds of crime, or to avoid tax. Funds could also be misused by partner organisations, which may be overseas, and fraudsters might also pose as beneficiaries. Looking now at online fundraising, and for the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to focus on online fundraising fraud, as it's an ever-growing area of risk, both for charities and members of the public who need to be alert to the dangers. Online fundraising fraud is likely to grow as more fundraising and giving takes place digitally. New methods of online fundraising are emerging, with the launch of new platforms and diversification of others, for example, Facebook fundraising or Zoom fundraising, and now Twitch, the gaming platform. New ways of giving, such as through digital cryptocurrencies, are also growing in popularity. Not surprisingly, during the pandemic, more charities turned to online fundraising when in-person fundraising methods had to be paused. We recently published our annual complaints report for 2020 to 21, and this found that charities reported a large amount of online fundraising activity during the pandemic, combined with a reduction of activity for in-person methods. Not surprisingly, complaints about online fundraising increased by over 250% on figures reported a year ago, and that reflects the increased activity online. However, in that context, overall complaints about all methods of fundraising were not surprisingly lower. More donors are also giving to causes online, both direct to charities and to people fundraising on behalf of charities through fundraising platforms. The Chartered Institute of Fundraising's recent publication, called Fundraising and Giving During COVID, which was published on the 6th of October, finds that the volume of regular givers recruited online more than doubled and for the first time ever surpassed offline recruits over the period of the pandemic. That's perhaps not so surprising. This evidences a need, though, for both charities and members of the public to remain vigilant when fundraising and giving online to make sure funds are ending up where they were intended. If we look now at fraud and crowdfunding, it's important to remember that the fundraising regulator regulates fundraising that is carried out for charitable purposes only. When it comes to online fundraising, in particular crowdfunding, not all of this activity is charitable. Some crowd funds are for personal causes or non-charitable campaigning, and that type of giving is not regulated by the fundraising regulator. While fundraisers organised through online platforms are a popular and accessible method to raise funds for good causes, it comes with a risk of fraud because often people are being asked to donate into a personal bank account. Even if someone is using a platform to fundraise for a genuine charity, there is also a risk that the money may not be received by the named organisation. So if you're donating to someone's personal account, there's no guarantee the funds will be passed to the charity. The charity also may not know that someone is raising funds for them or claiming to be raising funds for them. Other types of online fundraising, in particular that carried out by some high-profile campaign groups, has come under scrutiny. It's important to remember that campaign groups are not charities as a rule, so donors should tread carefully when considering a donation to a cause that isn't charitable. The fundraising that those sorts of campaign groups do isn't directly regulated, and redress when things go wrong, if they go wrong, can be very difficult. Let's now look at mitigating fundraising fraud. There are 3 steps that members of the public should be alert to when donating online. Firstly, look out for the fundraising regulator's badge on charity websites and on crowdfunding pages. The badge means that the charity platform has committed to good fundraising and people can have confidence that their donation will be handled in line with the code of fundraising practice. Secondly, do your research. Look at the fundraising regulator's directory online on our website to check the platform or charity is listed there. All organisations listed in our directory show which charities have registered with us and have committed to the code. You can check the Charity Commission's online register as well to check that it's submitted all the annual returns and audited accounts with a trustee's annual report that would be expected. And that means you can check a charity is legitimate. Thirdly, ask questions before donating. All charities and fundraisers should be prepared to answer questions on what the donated funds will be used for. If you're unsure about the legitimacy of a charity campaign, always get in touch to ask questions before you donate, and charities will, I'm sure, be very happy to answer those questions. Charities should also promote these fraud awareness steps to members of the public to help ensure that people are alert to the risks and that they can then donate with confidence. Charities should also make sure they are as transparent as possible about what they are fundraising for and make it easy for people to find out about more information if they need it. By making the purpose really clear, members of the public are more likely to spot a fraudulent fundraiser using the charity's name. Large charities are also likely to have compliance teams that can scan the internet for fake fundraising pages, but this is also an important area of due diligence for charities of all sizes to carry out on a regular basis. Let's look now at our work at the Fundraising Regulator to combat online fundraising fraud. It's important that people feel confident that fundraising is being carried out in a fair, ethical, and legal way to help people make an informed decision when they donate. We have put together key advice on safer giving, and we're also raising awareness of our fundraising badge so that the public knows to look out for this before donating. We have also worked collaboratively with over 20 online fundraising platforms and following a public consultation when we developed new standards and guidance, also reflected in our Code of Fundraising Practice, to make clear the responsibilities of online platforms in giving advice before someone opens a page or makes a donation onto a page that somebody else has set up. Central to this is the principle of transparency. Fundraising platforms and fundraisers must be clear about where the money is going so that donors have all the facts they need to make an informed decision to give. We now have 24 online platforms registered with us. We have also published separate guidance for the public who raise funds on these platforms to prevent people from inadvertently breaching the code, help them understand what to expect during the donation process and how to identify fraudulent pages. Again, this can be accessed on our website. Finally, we will be reviewing the code in 2022 to make sure it remains up to date with the latest in online fundraising. We're going to make sure that online and digital themes run throughout all the sections of the code, very much reflecting how fundraising practice has changed over recent years, and particularly during the last 18 months of the pandemic. In summary, it is important to remember that online fundraising is growing in popularity, and therefore the risks of fraud are increasing, as in so many areas of daily life. There are steps that members of the public can take to protect themselves and that charities can take to raise the awareness of potential fraud. The fundraising regulator is absolutely committed to providing effective and relevant regulation that reflects the evolution of online fundraising.